You're listening to The People's Voice, May 16th to 31st, 2024. As Israel escalated its airstrikes of Rafah and confirmed its plan for a ground assault where 1.3 million Palestinians from northern Gaza have been displaced, students, faculty, and workers on university campuses across Canada have set up encampments to force their institutions to divest from Israel. The protests have been met with outrage and threats from the state and institutional authorities. McGill University asked for Montreal police to clear its encampments, while the University of Toronto threatened to charge participants with trespassing. At the same time, however, many labor and community organizations have responded to the encampments with statements of solidarity and by providing supplies. The current widening wave of campus encampments is not a new fad as much of the media suggests. There is a lengthy history of students, faculty, and campus workers mobilizing in solidarity with Palestinian people. During the 2007-2008 school year, several university and CSHEP campuses across Quebec voted to support the boycott, divestment, sanction campaign against Israel. Following the lead of the Quebec student movement between 2012 and 2017, at least 16 student unions in English-speaking Canada passed resolutions in support of the Palestinian people. Passing boycott, divestment, and sanctions resolutions requires a huge amount of organization. This is particularly so since they have often led to attacks from administration on student democracy, including the withholding of dues. Last year, the Communist Party of Canada conducted a successful agitational campaign around the rising cost of living experienced by working people across the country. A coast-to-coast petition received the highest amount of in-person physical signatures addressed to the federal parliament in 2023. The Communist Party of Canada is now focusing its message to call for the rolling back of consumer prices, corporate profits, and military spending. In 2023, corporate profits reached $577 billion, while unemployment and interest rates continued to worsen. Medicare was systematically dismembered and privatized, while Canada's official military budget skyrocketed to $36.7 billion. But the working class is fighting back. Last year also saw the highest number of workdays lost to work stoppages since 2005, with 2.2 million workdays lost in the first 9 months of the year. The primary message of the party campaign is that rising prices at grocery stores, at the pump, and for housing are intrinsically linked to record corporate profits. The party presents 3 basic demands. First, it is calling for action to roll back prices and profits. This means price control legislation, doubling corporate taxes, as well as closing tax loopholes and havens. Second, the party calls for cutting military spending by 75% and converting that into civilian spending. This means getting Canada out of NATO and NORAD, ending all arms exports, and adopting an independent Canadian foreign policy of peace and disarmament. And finally, it is calling for expanded universal social programs and public services, meaning the reversal of privatization and an increase in the social wage. Around 100 people gathered in Nanaimo, BC on April 1st to protest Conservative Party leader Pierre Poilievre's Axe the Tax town hall at the Vancouver Island Conference Centre. The action was organized by Students for Palestine and the Muslim Women's Club of Vancouver Island University. Demonstrators occupied the stairwells to the conference center's main hall, forcing attendees to walk past the long line of protesters on each step and the landing, carrying signs chanting, "Genocide Pierre, you can't hide. We know you take CJA bribes." Several altercations took place between demonstrators and Poilievre supporters, including yelling at protesters, knocking signs out of their hands, and attempting to physically intimidate demonstrators with bodily contact. Videos posted to Facebook and Instagram show a doorman shoving 2 Palestinian students and members of the Muslim Women's Club. There's also footage of a Poilievre supporter pushing a demonstrator down the stairs. While local media failed to adequately cover the event, extensive coverage of the conference appeared in Ezra Levant's far-right outlet Rebel News. A video uploaded to their YouTube channel on April 4th titled, "Anti-Israel Protesters Failed to Stop Packed Poilievre Rally," shows extensive footage of the protest outside and inside the conference center. For months, resident protesters in St. John's, Newfoundland were peacefully encamped at Tent City for Change, trying to provide a safe community for unhoused people. Tent City for Change also worked to draw attention to the housing crisis that is felt by millions of people across the country and advocate for long-term accessible housing for all. After surviving the summer, resident protesters were evicted by government authorities and police on May 3rd. The dismantling of the Tent City has been met with anger and denunciation from the community and housing organizations. The St. John's Status of Women Council said that these actions are in conflict with international human rights law and Canadian legislation, and noted that people who experience multiple forms of oppression and systemic discrimination are most likely to be without housing that is adequate, suitable, or affordable. During the eviction, Tent City for Change streamed video footage of the police and authorities on its Facebook page, along with an appeal for solidarity. The Social Justice Co-op Newfoundland has been organizing community members to help salvage and store the resident protesters' belongings. It also asked people to contact members of the provincial government, including Premier Andrew Furey, Housing Minister Fred Hutton, and Justice Minister John Hogan, to protest the decision. That's all for now. If you're interested in strengthening working-class press here in Canada, consider lending your support to the People's Voice Fund Drive at pvonline.ca.